Another live Poke the Bear, another live podcast episode on the Bruins Ringside YouTube, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Presented by CLNS Media. Make sure to go check out all our great stuff at Bruins Ringside. We're doing this all the time now. What is this, like 3 or 4 live streams in a week? Crazy.
I love it.
Continue. It's going to continue. We're going to keep doing a lot of these live podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to Bruins Ringside over on YouTube. And if you don't like watching and you just like listening, which is okay, you can go subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, wherever. There's lots of other great stuff at CLNS too. Patriots Press Pass. It's also all access. Go subscribe to all those things. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Conor, what's going on?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Late night last night. Whoa.
Sure
Man. Is. Late. And the BJ's guy just screaming at us.
We gotta
you pay too much for a double espresso martini. Yeah, we're not around at BJ's. Like
we gotta talk about something. This is surprise to the people on the live stream. We ain't talking about the Bruins game, buddy. Nope, we're talking about how much we hate that goddamn ad. That ad is the most jarring thing. You know, like the one that's like the ad, I forget what like disease it is, but it's supposed to be like a regular like prescription ad, and it's like, I'm playing pickleball with my friend, and then it cuts out to like this person just friggin' died.
They died of mesothelioma.
It's whatever that ad is, and you watch it and you're like, oh. I have the same reaction when that jabroni from BJ's pops up, and it's like, we got meatballs so big you can roll down Bunker Hill. It's like, who is this for? And listen, I'm not besmirching BJ's. It's a great store. It's helped me out many a times for catering needs, but it's horrifying. It's jarring. I don't like it. And the last thing I wanted to see after a game that was entertaining was that man yelling at me through my TV screen. I felt I was assaulted, Evan. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I've noticed it in the preseason, and that's clearly that's why they have it. So we hear people like,
I know they got us,
goobers like us, like we take the cheese. We're like Middlestat on that power play last night, just giving it in the middle of the ice, and they're going the other way for a goal.
He was trying to get that. He was trying to feed that puck through, and he's heard in the back of his head like, "Meatballs, you can roll down Bunker Hill," and he's like, "Oh," and just threw it.
Pass it. Like, that was him.
Exactly.
That's him.
If we really want to talk about the culprit of this loss, I think we know who we can point to.
He's up there with your cousin from Boston. That's like what he is. I mean, maybe it's the same. It's not the same guy, but like,
it might be the same guy.
Idea.
I mean, it's probably your cousin from Boston's cousin, if we're being honest.
Here's the thing, your cousin, Conor.
Yeah, exactly. We joke he might be related to me, but like, here's the thing: your cousin from Boston. Those ads come on, and you like roll your eyes and like, whatever. And like, at least they're bringing in like Derek White and stuff that makes it somewhat funny, right? Where it's someone like that, like the BJ's guy, it's like Lazy Sunday. It's like black and white. He's like yelling into the camera. It's horrifying. Dude. I hate that ad so much, Evan. And that is my main takeaway from last night's game. We're not talking about the game.
Nope.
We're talking about how much we hate that ad.
I like the idea.
And there goes the BJ sponsorship, buddy.
Yeah, we lost it. Well, I'm a pro market basket guy, so I'm holding out hope for that. But I like the idea of like the shoot day of that commercial. Like they're at wherever, somewhere in Boston. It's like they're in like the North End or they're near the harbor or something. And it's just like a guy yelling into a camera and people walking by like, what the heck? Like,
to be fair, there's enough people who do that for like
BJ's commercial.
There's enough people who do that or just shouting into their phones anyway that I feel like it doesn't phase anyone now. It's like people are like, I'm at the Union Oyster House and the food sucks.
Like, have you seen those influencer hotels where it's like people are like setting up near the pool and are people just filming everything they do? I think that's a weird thing to do in 2025. Anyway, we do have a game to talk about. As Robert Chalmers says, are we live? We are live.
Yeah, sorry everyone.
Chris Nosek did say, or at least they didn't cut to a Chipotle commercial as a goal was being scored. Yeah, that is true. That is a positive.
You just wait, Chris, until all of a sudden on the power play, Pasta's winding up, and all of a sudden the BJ's guy's face is going to come right on the screen, and it's going to suck.
Well, do you remember a couple of years ago when the lights went out mid-shot from the point? I think it was against the Panthers. Like, it's going to be like puck is going in the net, overtime, and the BJ's guy pops up. And, what happened? I have no idea. But I know I don't want to go shop at BJ's right now. I can tell you that.
That's true.
Bruins lose 6-5. And I think that a tough loss, especially late. It was an exciting game, no question. Monday, I felt very like after that game, like, all right, they came and they fought back and good on them. I didn't feel that way on Thursday. I didn't. Enough moral victory, BS. Like, you lost. You deserve to lose. That no question. Good on you, I guess, for making a little bit of a comeback and making it a little close. I think that's more on crappy goaltending than it is anything else. I don't look at this as like a silver, like a happy loss, because that's 2 in a row now. I looked at this game and said, boy, there's a big talent gap. And we expected that. But that top 6 versus top 6 from Vegas, no contest, no question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously pretty telling, and I agree. Like, it's not a surprise when you look. I mean, geez, like Vegas rolls out on a 5-on-3, and it's Eichel, Mana, Stone, Hurdle, and Dorofeev. He's got a laser beam for a shot. It's like that's horrifying in terms of just how much skill they have on their forward grouping. So I think we all knew that. Like the Bruins, regardless of most times this season, they are going to be outgunned. So like that's no surprise, but I think this game is more like frustrating and disappointing because like I agree, like Monday's game against Tampa, you fight back. And I think it was like kind of one reassuring that like the Bruins weren't like, all right, a team's up 2 goals on them, it's over. Like I gave them credit for fighting back. They made it a competitive game. It sucks they were kind of sleepwalking through the first 30 minutes of that game because things would have been changed. But you take some of the positives, like, all right, like that's a good team in Tampa. You're seeing some signs of progress. That goodwill doesn't carry over into this game, I don't think, where, I mean, you had so much that went awry and stuff that, like, you should be better at, right? Like, the Bruins aren't going to be able to outskill a lot of teams. We know that. Nor is it going to be realistic that the bottom 6 is going to be carrying the scoring burden for this team night in and night out. At least you hope not. But to have a game like that where you are competitive, you don't roll over, you fight back, and you're handling the puck like a hand grenade. You can't like break the puck out. You're making unforced errors. Your PK, like you give that first goal where it's like, oh, this Pavel Dorofeev guy, yeah, he's got like 5 power play goals. Let's leave him open. Have him just fire in bombs against Swayman. Not that good. And then that like what ends up being, unfortunately, the game-winning goal for Carlson. It's like, you know, like when you go to like on the runway and there's the guys with like the light cones guiding the thing is, that was the Bruins letting William Karlsson just skate in alone there. I was like, what the hell was that? Yeah.
I was like, where are you going with this? But yes, you're right.
Yes. So, I mean, you have those situations where, again, the skill is what it is in the talent deficiency you have. There's also like non-negotiables that you can control as far as like your D-zone structure, your attention to details, your PK, you know, even the power play, we have that awful lapse with Casey Middlestad where feeds the puck. Everyone in that building knew that was going to Pastrnak, gets picked off. And then even just like your top 6, not pulling any, you know, throwing any punches at all in that game. Like that was a game where you should have at least come out with a point, I think, especially when you look at just how they fought back. But I think Marcus Sturm said it the best afterwards. Like, we're not focusing in on the silver linings after a game like that. Like, we played 2 tough teams and we played pretty tough, but like we have 0 points to show for it. Are we supposed to feel good about that? No, we left points on the board when we actually kind of showed some resolve, but you have to be better. Like this team, the margin for error is so narrow that you can't be going in at like a 60% effort and expect to get a point out of it. You just don't have the bodies of the horses to do that.
Yeah, Chris even says the most frustrating thing about this game is the fact they showed their best defensive game in their worst minutes. You and I were talking about this last night. Like they would have a great sequence, and then the next sequence they'd go the other way, and boom, like that'd be completely canceled out. And one thing I notice at all levels of hockey is when there's a team who doesn't have a lot of skill, and a lot of their game is predicated off chipping pucks off the glass and dumping pucks in. When it is time to be creative, or they do try to do something with the puck, bad things can happen. Either because they're not used to doing that all the time, or as with the case with this team, they're not as skilled. And I worry about that a little bit with them. And you saw it in that Vegas game where there are those egregious turnovers when they're not just chipping pucks off the glass and out of the zone, or when they don't have a lot of time and space and they're opting for dump. And I think the reason and Sturm talked about this after last night's game, the reason that bottom 6 works so well, especially that fourth line, at least against Vegas, chipping pucks in, playing behind them. Like that's what they're good at. You have a line of Corrali, Kastelik, and Jeffrey Viel. Like, yeah, you're not dangling anybody, although Kastelik freaking sniped one. You're getting down low and you're hammering guys and you're pinning guys and you're winning puck battles. Now, I think part of the reason is like, that's not Casey Middlestad's game. That's not Pavel Zacha's game. That's not, even really Victor Arvidsson's game. And I think that's what's difficult with this top 6 right now is they're having trouble creating offense at 5-on-5. And a large part of that is like they're not skilled enough to do that consistently. And outside of Pastrnak, and when you're playing a team like Vegas, or you will in Colorado tomorrow night on Saturday, like you don't have the horses in that top 6 to play that kind of skilled game. And I wonder if you see the top 6 sort of start to adapt what that bottom 6 does a little bit. I'm not saying that they're going to be dumping and chasing every single time, but I do wonder if they really try to create offense off forechecks and through the cycle and through just kind of firing pucks on net, because it worked for the bottom 6 on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the disparity. I mean, again, even with a guy like David Pastrnak, and I agree, like guys like Casey Middlestead, Victor Arvidsson, can skate well. They have some playmaking capabilities, but it's night and day when you compare like what they were doing in that game to what Vegas's top 6 was done. Like my heart was breaking looking at Eichel skating up the ice and just how dynamic he was. He's so damn good.
Nasty.
He's a beast. He's
Holy
so good.
Crap.
No bias.
His hands.
Yeah.
Like
no bias, but
no bias at all. He's filthy though. Like it is crazy how good he is.
But then like you got Mana, you got Dorofeyev, who's, again, doesn't have to really do anything, but he's got a shot like that. You don't have to worry about it. Stone, all these guys. Stone, who does every single game, feels like he is like Peter Griffin, like is just getting like the shit kicked out of him, like for either like inadvertent or what have you. But I just think that, the Bruins either have to simplify things or they have to change their approach, because trying to like outskill a team like Vegas isn't going to work. And again, Vegas is maybe like the prime example of just how much talent they have. But again, to what I said earlier, there's a lot of teams in the NHL that you look at the top 6 and you compare them to the Bruins. The Bruins are probably going to lose that like head-to-head skill matchup. Like I'm trying to think of like off the top of my head, which will probably take a long time, of how many teams have less skill in the top 6. Not that much. Like even look at Utah with Cooley and Kella and Gunther. Like all those guys are probably more well-rounded skill-wise. So the Bruins, I think, just do have to simplify things and just clean up the mistakes, because they don't have the personnel in place to play like a loose up and down, back and forth game. And again, if you ask me like what's more likely to happen, like the Bruins continuing to play up and down hockey, or the bottom 6 saving the day, like with how they're producing, I don't think that's happening. We remember last year in October when I think the Kastelik, Cole Koepke, Johnny Beecher line was like arguably the best line in hockey. First 2 weeks of the year. That didn't happen the entire rest of the season. So you can't rely on that. So what do the Bruins have to do? Yeah, you're hoping that the top 6 kind of wakes up, especially at 5-on-5 play, but you have to tighten things up. And that's the way the Bruins have to play. That's what Marco Sturm has said in July. He said it in September, and he's going to keep on saying it, that the Bruins, if they want to be successful, they have to play shut down, grinded out hockey. And they can't get into these track meets, because sooner or later it's going to bite. Not even sooner or later, it's already biting them in the ass. And when their bottom 6 isn't scoring, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, again, like 6 goals. You gave up 6, a shorthanded goal. And what's funny is they kill off the 5-on-3 and the 5-on-4 right after it.
It was an awesome sequence. They
do that.
Kicking ass. Yeah.
They do that, and then it's sort of what Chris was alluding to, and then you have the a goal soon after. That to me, and I think that's what's difficult with this team, is like they are at their best if it's a 2-1 or 3-2 type game, a low scoring game. And yeah, they score 5 last night, and that Asimont goal was. I don't want to be letting that one in. And even the Zadorov one from the point, it looked like it went off VL, goes off his leg and goes in. But again, you take them where you can get them. You just can't rely on those goals. So like, again, you can say the same thing we said after Monday. Last night's game last year, they lose 7-2, like at least there's that. But I'm not taking solace in that. I'm not now being like, oh, they're good. Like you've improved, but you still came away with 0 points last night. I want to get more into changes they need to make going into Colorado and Utah, and different things they need to do. But first, our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode's brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Now, Bruins are in action on Saturday. Here are the things I like. I like Elias Lindholm more than 1.5 shots on goal. He's done that in his last 5 games. I like Charlie McAvoy more than 1.5 shots on goal. We'll get into him in a second. And then Morgan Geekie, I think he's due for a goal. More than 0.5 goals I would go with. So Prize Picks, simple to play, just like more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in. Prize Picks, they put their users first. So all withdrawals are safe, fast, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. It's good to be right. Zach Heist adds, Calgary has less skill in the top 6, but yeah, not many teams. Yeah, I mean, that's one.
Yeah.
Like, even Chicago, like, they have some speed. Nazar, Bedard, like, you know, not saying that they're completely better, you know, that they're not better than you in the top 6, but like they've got a little more skill, a little more speed. In terms of what needs to change, one thing I mentioned McAvoy talking about Prize Picks. I have not been impressed with him the last 2 games. No. Power play hasn't been terrific with him at the top. I think 5-on-5 play, even some of his angles he's taken on forwards off the rush, I haven't loved. You need Hampus Lindholm back, but you really need McAvoy to be better than he has been the last 2 nights.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, again, this is a team that we've said it before, right? Like, you're still going to have to rely heavily on your big guns to stay competitive most nights. And I think you're generally seeing that from Swayman. Like, I think even Marco Sturm said it after the game on Thursday night that, you know, he wasn't going to blame Swayman for that game. It's a game where I think for a lot of people, you wake up in the morning, you go check your phone, and you're like, friggin' Swayman. Really wasn't
6
the case.
goals.
Like, yeah. So, I mean, I think he's done his part, but then, like, I think obviously you look at McAvoy and even Pasternak, and I think you just need a little bit more. And is that fair, right? That you need, like, Pasternak just to pick up where he was last year, where he was playing like a legitimate MVP candidate the last 3 months of the year? Probably not, but that's what this season has to be, right? You're going to have to rely on your players, your top players, to keep you afloat most nights. So when you have a game where your top 6 really can't generate much of anything, and I think the Bruins, the Geekie, Lindholm, Pasternak line's been out there for 5 games now. They've got 1 5-on-5 goal scored. Like, that ain't going to cut it. I think they've been outscored now 3-1 in their 5-on-5 ice time. That's not going to work. And then, yeah, Charlie McAvoy, you've seen spurts, right? But you need him to be a much better player as far as, like, you talk about leading by example. You can't have situations like, as you said, like bad angles on Thursday or even Monday where you sleepwalking early on in the game. And who's the main culprit? It's him getting his pickpocketed by Jake Densel there. You can't have it. So, yeah, I do think we'll talk about, like, lineup additions. And obviously, if Hampus Lindholm can get back in the lineup, that's going to be huge for this team. I really like Jordan Harris's game, but I think you saw a little bit of the cracks form a little bit there. Not saying that it was just him, but I do think getting Lindholm back out there is going to be huge for this team, but it's going to have to start with your top players. You need, like, if there's ever time for, like, a takeover game, which the Bruins could use that most nights, but if there was, like, a Pasternak takeover game or a McAvoy takeover game in Colorado, it would be sorely needed because this team just kind of needs to reset things and take a little bit of a breather. It feels like they're aware how much or how little margin for error they have. And what makes that a lot easier is if one of your star players does take over.
Yeah, a McAvoy takeover game, multiple hits, firing pucks on net, facilitating the ozone. You need that. And I also wonder, like, what's his comfort level with Mason Lowry? Like, I just, that's another thing where, like, when Hampus Lindholm is out, you notice Hampus Lindholm is out, where it's like, oh,
yeah.
Like and I like Lowry's game. I like his ceiling. I think that he has potential. I'm not one of those people who's like, trade him. But, like, is he a top pairing left shot D right now? And I think you see flashes where it's good, and you see some, things where you're like, oh my God, like, what was that? But I just wonder what McAvoy's comfort level is with him. Because, I mean, since Chara, unless I'm forgetting someone, and take out Hampus Lindholm because they've kind of had to split Hampus Lindholm and McAvoy up. But, like, he said Grzelcyk, him and Grzelcyk were good except for their last season. But, like, McAvoy's never really had, like, a stalwart partner. And there's also the argument to be made that McAvoy is good enough and makes enough money where, like, you shouldn't maybe need that. And I wonder what his comfort level is like with Lowry.
It is kind of interesting, right? Because I agree that like Lowry, obviously there's been some ups and downs. I thought he was good to start the season. Monday's game, I think a lot of guys on defense honestly had forgettable games. I thought Lowry actually like had a few stretches where he felt like he was a little bit more assertive. Obviously, I think he set up the AC Mont goal, I believe it was, or was it Castle? So like there's been some solid steps forward there for him. But I do agree. I don't really like. I'm looking at Lowry as a guy that I'm gonna have to worry about taking him out of the lineup. It's all about, I think, how he best plays off of someone. I think that's kind of the main question is like, is McAvoy's game being hampered because not that he's babysitting Lowry, but do you have to like monitor him more? Are you more restricted as far as what you can do? Because you're also just keeping tabs on a guy that obviously has some warts in the defensive zone that you just have to account for. And I think honestly, that's kind of why McAvoy played off Grzelcyk so well. It's because Grzelcyk, like for his faults, and we can talk about them, right? Like when he was especially healthy, but playing at his highest level, he was kind of like the set and forget it. You have to worry about him. He was going to retrieve the puck. He was going to make the quick pass, not put himself in danger, and usually just make kind of the smart, simple play that I think for McAvoy, you don't have to worry about it. And he could kind of play more of that assertive kind of rover role that I've mentioned, that I feel like that's when McAvoy's playing at his best, when he doesn't have to do the dirty work or worry about what his D partner is going to do. So I do think that is something that it's not Lowry's own play necessarily, right? I think we know there's going to be ups and downs, but it's kind of who he best plays with. And maybe more importantly, who's the best player for McAvoy. Like you almost wonder if like, would Harris and McAvoy work? Where it's like, because I think Harris is kind of a guy that reminds me a little bit of Grzelcyk, not just because he's another Hockey East guy, but makes kind of smart. Like when you see him playing well, it's kind of those smart, simple plays, the quick first passes, the things that sometimes you don't really notice, but makes life easier for the rest of the guys out on the ice. So I do wonder if that top pair with Lowry and McAvoy keeps on having some ups and downs, and especially McAvoy can't get into like a groove. I wonder if they kind of cycle through different players, see where he kind of best fits, and whether a guy like Harris kind of fits that bill there.
Well, there were times last year when like Jordan Osterley kind of worked with McAvoy. And I remember there were a couple episodes where like, is that a good fit? And then it wouldn't, and then Osterley would struggle and be like, okay, that's right. He's a seventh defenseman. It's an interesting point you make about Harris of whether or not he could be that guy. I mean, Lindholm is the ultimate one, but it's hard to put them both on a D pairing. And I think the other thing about Lowry, and he obviously gets a bad rep from some people, and there are times again that you're like, what was that? He's a really creative puck mover. And I think on a team that needs some skill, that needs a little bit of offensive pizzazz every now and again, he provides that. And I like him on the power play. I like him quarterbacking that second unit. And there are times when like his zone entries are a little bit cleaner. He's a little more unpredictable at the top of the zone than McAvoy is at times. And again, when Hampus Lindholm comes back, I'm very intrigued to see, what kind of rope they give him on either the second unit or potentially the first. So that'll be interesting to see. Before we get into lineup changes, just friendly reminder, and this is live, so I can't edit it out, but we didn't edit that stuff out before.
Shoot.
It doesn't matter. Make sure
we never edited anything, Evan. What are you talking about?
We never edited a single thing. Actually, no, now we don't have the scripts for these episodes. Now we can't, there's no teleprompter. We just have to off the top of our head.
You're revealing the movie magic, Evan. Stop
that's right. This. You're seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Lots of great stuff. Let's get to 10K. That'll be awesome. We're close. That the screen says 9.55. I think we're at like 9.97. So just a couple more and we're at 10,000, which would be awesome. Content all the time, live stuff all the time. And if you don't like watching us, and you're like, oh, these guys are ugly. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts from: Spotify, Apple, Podbean, wherever. And then obviously lots of other great stuff at CLNS too. Celtics All Access, Patriots Press Pass. Those two places are cooking. So go check them out. Lineup changes. We talked before the Vegas game, and we were kind of fine with keeping the lineup the same. Sturm opts to bring in Jeffrey VL for Marat Hustendinov. What changes would you make going into Colorado?
Well, they're kind of in a tough spot, right? Where you look at the available skaters they have, and it's kind of the conundrum where like your two extra skaters going into Thursday was Jeffrey Viel and Johnny Beecher, who are kind of like the same player. So it's not like you have Blue Mel or someone, right? Like waiting in the wings that you could put in to add a little bit more scoring touch. You kind of have these 2 checking line guys. Maybe Husendinov can come back in, but I also wonder where exactly is like the best fit in terms of where you would change things up. Like, would it be you move Asimon to like the 4th line and you bring in another player there on the 3rd line? Do you change things around with the 2nd line with Arvidsson, who I thought had a pretty rough game? I think probably that whole 2nd line did as well. And even like you saw during Thursday's game, Marco Sturm switched up the top 6 where he had Zaka with Lindholm and Pasternak, and you had Geeky down with the 2nd line with Middlestat and Arvidsson. So that could be a change as well to see like what kind of things you can get out of that group. But I do wonder, like, I'm not sure it's going to happen during this road trip, but if like that 2nd line, that middle 6 continues to kind of go up and down, do you already look at a guy from Providence, or do you let that kind of marinate and cook for a while here before you turn to a Blumel or a Lysell or someone like that? Because again, I don't think like Marco Sturm like wants to just like roadblock all these guys down in Providence, but I also wonder if they want to let these guys kind of marinate, play 10 plus games, see if, like Lysell had a hat trick last weekend. Let's see how he builds off of that before immediately giving him the call up or something like that. But I do think that the middle 6 is probably the spot where you have to find the most clarity, because it just feels like a lot of that's in flux. I'm not too worried about like the Lindholm Pasternak, like that duo. I think is going to end up being fine. I think you can put a bunch of guys on the 4th line. They're going to do well as long as you have, I think, Castlick and Corrali there driving play. It's just that middle 6 is still so in flux that I do wonder if probably after this road trip, you start taking a look at how guys are doing down in Providence.
Yeah, I don't make any changes. I don't. We criticized Jim Montgomery a lot last year for putting the lines in the blender consistently, especially during games. And I understand Sturm on Thursday trying to get something going, moving, switching Zaka and Geeky. I let him marinate. You mentioned the whole thing of like 10 games and then you start to evaluate. I'm with you. Like I this is not the time to start, mixing and matching. Because again, it was only 3 games, but up until, earlier this week, even on Monday, the lines looked pretty good. I mean, we were going into this West Coast trip being like, no one's played themselves out of the lineup. Yeah, like this is pretty good. I keep it the same. If you want to put Husendinov back in for VL, you can do that. He did his job. Like, I'm not a big pro Jeff VL guy. Like, oh my God, he's got to be in the lineup, but did his job on Thursday at the very least. Yep. I think I am still curious to see how Colorado's speed matches Bruins' lack of speed. But I don't make any changes. You keep it the same. You roll it out. It worked. It's been working. Let them marinate a little bit. And like, Chris says, Middlestat's been a problem. Need to reward Mitten in his great play. Swap those 2 for a few shifts. I think there's a little bit of that. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to it for a couple shifts. Mitten's been really smart and supportive, but I would also say Middlestat's offensive ceiling is higher than that of Fraser Mitten. So like, with Middlestat, there's some mind-numbing moments. Like the pass on the power play last night was just like, what, dude? Like, you even like faked it a little, and Stone like put his stick there, and then you tried to do it again.
Stone was like, "Oh my God, he actually did it."
Yeah, he did. Like, but then there's part of me that's like, well, you need that little dose of offense sometimes, and Middlestat can provide that a little more than someone like a Mitten can. I've loved Mitten. Like, I think he's phenomenal supporting the play and what he provides you in all 3 zones on the ice. But yeah, I'm not making any changes to the lineup right now. And I know that people might disagree with that because you might think that, they need a jolt. But maybe you do that when you come home. But I say let it cook for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I just think you have to wait things out and just see what you have here. Because it's almost like you mentioned, a Lysell or a Patra, one of these guys. Like Sturm's kind of spiel at the end of training camp was like, hey, we like some things, but you still got stuff to work on. Work your ass off down there and we'll give you a chance. I feel like you have to let those guys spend like a couple of weeks down there before all of a sudden they have 1 hat trick and you get a phone call like, please come back and save us. Like, you don't, it's not that great, right?
Please.
So I do think that also is part of it of like, you have to, I think, preach the slow and steady approach. There's been a lot of guys that have been on the slow and steady approach with Providence, but I think it being a new year, a clean slate, you want to give these guys some time to settle into a groove, build some momentum, feel good about their game beyond just a good weekend or 2 here before you start, breaking glass in case of emergency and start calling up guys. I think like Sturm does have an appetite for like bringing the young guys if they continue to play well. Because I think if there's every year to do it, it's now. But I'm not doing it quite yet. I think it's a big thing.
I'm not either. Providence only played what, 2 games? I think so far.
Two or three, I
It's
believe.
like 2. So yeah, it's a short sample size down there. On defense, Harris, as you said, had been good. There were some cracks on Thursday night. I think if Lindholm can go, I think he moves back in. But I also wonder, like, Harris does. I think Harris is a little more dynamic than Yoki Haru is. Like, I wouldn't automatically kick Harris out. If someone can play their offside, then terrific. I know Zadorov and Yoki Haru have had a good history together, and like Yoki Haru's fine. But I wonder if Yoki Haru is someone that they would be open to moving out to put Hampus Lindholm in.
Yeah, I think it depends on who can play out the offside if that is the case. Because I agree. Like I think Yoki Haru's been solid. He didn't look good on the Carlson power play goal. That's for sure.
No.
Again, I also will say like not a lot of guys when you give up 6 goals. Not a lot of guys in the D corps is going to leave that game feeling good about the tape they put out there. But if Harris is a guy that can shift to his offside, maybe that is something that you can look at. But I think Lindholm being back is the big key, right? Stuff just I think falls more into place as far as not just we talked about like maybe the flashier parts of what Lindholm can bring as far as the power play, offense, transition game, but even just like puck management, like making the first pass in the D zone. There's been so many times these last 2 games where you're like watching them and you're trying to get out of the D zone like this, trying to see like how exactly they're going to navigate. And Lindholm just when he's on, and again, the big key for him, if he's going to come back at some point this weekend, is how healthy he is and if he's really ready to go. But when he's playing, confidently and healthy, he impacts the game, all 3 areas of the ice. So getting him back, I think, is the biggest key as far as smoothing things out. Because again, we can look at tweaking the lineup to get more offense, all that sort of stuff. The most important thing is them clamping down defensively, which has not been the case the last 2 games.
No, it hasn't been. Real quick in net. Swayman, I thought was fine on Thursday. It was not why you lost. There were a lot of breakdowns in front of him. Still, what did he make? Like 30 something saves? I mean, he was under
31 to 37.
Yeah, still under siege for a lot of that game. I mean, there are a couple there that you want back, but I didn't think he was the reason you lost. I didn't think that he deserved blame after that one. Do you go back to Swayman against Colorado? I say you do. I still hold by that, but I'm curious if you would switch to Korpisalo.
Yeah, I would probably go with Swayman again, and then you roll with Korpisalo for the second game against Utah. I think Korpisalo played. Did he have a shutout against Utah? Was it the first game after Jim Montgomery got fired and they played Utah at home? I think Korpisalo had a shutout. It was
like a 1-0 game. I remember that.
And it was like super low of in hockey. Like they're gonna play like this the whole year, and then like 2 weeks later they lost like 7-1 again. But I do think that's probably the best bet. Again, it's a tough matchup for Swayman, but one, he still is your number 1 goal, and you have to put him in these spots to see if he can keep you in the fight. And 2, like Swayman's a guy that I don't think he was the reason why you lost that game on Thursday against Vegas. And also 3, he's actually, I think, played up in Colorado pretty well over the last couple of years. So I go back to him, see if he can keep you in the fight again, where it's probably going to be another lopsided shot total, right? You're still going to have a lot of odd man rushes, power plays where you're going to be, defending for your life out there when you look at just how much firepower Colorado has. And I think this is another good kind of gut punch litmus test for a guy like Swayman to see how he can hold up and carry the burden of being the number 1 guy. You're gonna need him to be, but I think you got to see it out there. And if he, regardless of how he does, you hope that even if the Bruins come up short, he's kind of like Vegas, where he keeps you in the fight, kind of grinds through things, and then you have Korpisalo ready and rested for Utah on Sunday. So I think that's the best bet.
I agree. I'm fine with rolling Swayman back out there. He's your number 1 guy. There's a reason that, and I want to see him against Colorado. That's the other big thing. And I wonder if he can steal you a game, because this is the spot where you could use stealing of a game, because no points after Thursday night's game. So now we said like 3 or 4 points, I think would be like a good road trip. So these 2 games coming up are pretty important coming back home on Monday. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at theglobeandboston.com. We've you covered every step of the way this Bruins season. We got recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, analysis, all that good stuff. So please read all my stuff over at theglobeandboston.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Go have yourselves a great weekend.